Okay. Hello, hello. After 23 minutes, I finally figured this out. My husband also texted me to tell me that I had my microphone on mute because I didn't want you guys to hear me cussing when I was trying to figure out all of the details. But I think now you could probably hear me. Okay, so my husband is texting me and letting me know that you can finally hear me. Ah, what a disaster. But it's okay. I'm gonna have to mute some people over here and ask to have no notifications because a lot of people are texting me to let me know that they can finally hear me. So that's good. Welcome to Tono Latino's first YouTube live. Clearly, I need to do some troubleshooting to figure out what went wrong. Honestly, I have no idea what happened. But we are here now. So that is the good news. Let me go over the news. Let's get started because we have a lot to talk about and I prepared a lot of things. Joelle is here. Great. You know what? I'm going to trim this video so that people that watch it later are not annoyed by all of the problems that I had earlier. I know there is a little bit of a delay, so if you guys ask me a question, just know that there's going to be a delay in the response or that I'm going to see things later, okay? I prepared a ton of stuff to discuss with you. A lot of it, or pretty much all of it, is related to what's going on in our country with everything around coronavirus. And let's see if we can get started with some of the news that I prepared because, well, I prepared a lot of it and we have a lot to talk about. One thing that I want to do is show you, okay, because I promise you, I did do my homework and I did my homework really well. So I have like a little bit of an outline to discuss everything. And we're gonna go to my outline screen. I promise I'm gonna make this look a little bit nicer in the future. But the first thing we're going to talk about is the news related to the mask mandate. So earlier this week, we had some news that the CDC director, Robert Redfield, said that pretty much if everybody in the US wore a mask, we would have this under control between 4, 6, and 8 weeks. So the entire summer wearing a mask would help us safely reopen the country in the fall, which is something that everybody wants, but is worried about what's going to happen. But unfortunately, we're going to talk a little bit later about how there's so much pushback for wearing masks. I'm going to say this is positive. Now, over half the states in the country, plus Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., have a mask mandate. So that's good. Because this is the wrong tab. I should close this. Sorry. I'm really new at this. I need to figure this out a little bit better. But anyway, 28 states plus Puerto Rico have a mask mandate. If you want to look at the map, I have it right here. The latest states, I believe, were Alabama. But at the same time, we have some crazy news that, for example, Georgia Governor Kemp is suing the mayor of Atlanta for issuing a mask mandate. So it just drives me absolutely bonkers when things like this happen. I don't understand. He is urging people to wear masks, but he's also suing the Atlanta mayor for wearing a mask. I'm going to pause right here to see if anybody has any questions. I'm going to take a sip of wine because I think I have to... Oh, I need to fix this. I think I have extra white hairs from the 23 minutes that I was sweating trying to go live. Clearly, I need to learn some additional techniques about how to do this. So I really appreciate everybody's patience. I see that there's 5 viewers, and I hope you guys are, I don't know, relaxing somewhere. I was sweating bullets, texting back and forth with my husband. This was an absolute mess. But I'm glad you're here. I really want to thank you for your support. If you're not a subscriber, no, Kathy, you are not late. So Kathy's saying that she got a notification for the test last night. Thank goodness you didn't log in for that. And you probably got a bunch of notifications for today's event, but I kept screwing up. I don't know what happened. I tested this several times yesterday, and somehow, even though I scheduled the stream and everything was supposed to go really well, it wasn't connecting properly. So the way this works, I don't know if you guys are interested in knowing this. You say on YouTube that you're going to go live, and then you use a completely different software to connect the live stream. So it's not inside of a website. It's a little bit more complicated than that. It took me actually 4 hours last weekend to try to set everything up. So yeah, thank you for bearing with me. I really appreciate that you are here. So now let's go back to what we were talking about. I mentioned that now we have at least over half the states in the country, plus Puerto Rico and DC, issuing a mask mandate. The director of the CDC, Robert Redfield, said that if everybody wore a mask, this would be solved. We are seeing also some stores that are ignoring that some of the states are not issuing a mask mandate, and they're issuing a mandate of urging people to wear masks in the stores, even if it's not a requirement in the state. Oh, Travel Bug 477, thank you so much. I'm sending you a big hug. So that's what we have for news on mask wearing. I don't want to make this too long since you already had to wait an extra 23 minutes that you weren't planning on waiting to get to the news today. The other thing that I want to talk about, because it's related a lot to the masks, like I said, if we wore masks for 48 weeks, then we could reopen. And one of the questions in everybody's minds is reopening schools. And we have now a lot of very large school districts, some of the biggest school districts in the country, including San Diego, San Francisco, Houston, LA, saying that they're going to go to full online classes in the fall, ignoring the pressure that is coming from the government, the White House, trying to force people to reopen the schools. So the Trump administration is trying to do a lot of things to force the schools to open. But like I said, some of these school districts are not caving in. And here's a funny quote from today's press conference. The White House press secretary, her name is, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Kayleigh McEnany? I don't know. She's the woman that on her first day said that she was going to promise she would never lie to the public, which was her first lie. So today she said that the science should not stand in the way of opening the schools, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, especially because earlier this week we learned that internal CDC documents warned that fully reopening K through 12 schools and university would be the highest risk for the spread of the virus. And I wish I could show you, let me change a little bit of the scene so that at least you can see my face and not this mask mandate screen. We'll go back to that in a little bit. So there's that. The other thing is that over the weekend, Betsy DeVos went on Fox News. She told Chris Wallace, who is one of the few actual reporters in Fox News, and she's still pushing for the schools to reopen in the fall. And she is on board with the idea that if schools don't reopen, then they're going to just cut federal funding, which is funny because most of the money that goes to school comes from local and municipal governments. So Chris Wallace challenged her and said, hey, you don't have the authority because this is money that it's approved by Congress, and most of the money goes to disadvantaged students or those with disabilities. She doesn't care. She says that if schools don't open, that they shouldn't get the funds, and we should give them to families that send their kids to school, because all she cares about is reopening the schools. And maybe she's on board with the White House press secretary saying that the science should not get in the way of this. I'm not opposed to reopening the schools. The problem is that we don't have an administration that can do this, safely, because they haven't had any plans and the numbers just keep going up. We're going to look a little bit at the numbers later on. One of the most scary situations is going on in Florida, where we had record number of cases in a single day last weekend, 15,300 new confirmed cases. And the governor is refusing to release data on hospitalizations. But he's not going to slow down the state's reopening, and he's fully on board with reopening the schools. But we have some new data coming out yesterday or today that nearly 1/3 of children tested for COVID-19 in Florida are positive. About 17,000 of Florida's roughly 287,000 cases have been people younger than 18. So that is absolutely terrifying. And we should, not ignore it. I'm going to pause right here to see if you have any questions about the discussions or you have any opinions about the reopening of the schools. I'm going to hide a little bit the fact that I have usually 2,500 tabs open. I'm going to take a little bit of a sip of wine. In case you're wondering what I'm drinking, it's the best rosé you will ever have in your entire life. It's called A to Z. It's a local winery here in Oregon. They should sponsor me. Yes, I'm all on board of them sponsoring me. If anybody wants to send them an email, I'm all on board. I usually do all of my lives without any alcohol, but I was freaking out so much today that I said, okay, maybe a little bit of wine would not be a bad idea. And clearly I needed it with the 23 minutes of fighting against YouTube live settings. I'm obviously going to have to issue an apology to the subscribers that signed up for this and never got it. But all is good, right? All is good. There's Mr. Ron DeSantis, super governor for the state of Florida, who keeps saying that the state should reopen. It keeps ignoring the fact that his number of cases go up, up and up and up and up, including the number of deaths. So that is what I wanted to talk about K through 12 schools. Now, we have another news from earlier this week related to ICE's policy on, let's go back to the main scene so you see me, because this man can get a little bit distracting. ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, issued a new policy where they wanted to take away the visas of international students that were here for college if their university or college was not going to be open for in-person classes in the fall. Now, this would have affected a lot of students, and it would have been, I can't remember the exact number. I have it here somewhere. Let me check. Hold on. I think there was like billions of dollars. Over 1 million students would have been affected, and billions of dollars of money coming into American universities from these international students that usually not only pay full price, but they pay more expensive tuitions. So thanks to lawsuits from Harvard and MIT that obviously want to get that full tuition from the international students, and 17 states plus the District of Columbia suing the Trump administration, later in the week, I said they were going to drop the plan to take away the visas from international college students. I just saw a question from the chat, and I'm going to go back to discussing a little bit of the reopening of the schools. One thing that is very important to note is that a lot of these large school districts serve very large Hispanic populations. Houston, LA, San Diego. Also, something that is really scary about this, I believe it was the New York Times covering this in one of their podcasts, mentioned that over late spring, when we all went remote, 41%, I believe, of students in some of these districts never checked in to these remote learning environments, because a lot of them are low-income households, or they do not have the devices for each child. I know I have a friend that works in a very in a school district. She's a principal in a school with very low-income families, and they do not have devices. They do not have internet connectivity, and so she was printing out a ton of worksheets to distribute safely, or send like mail to the families. But again, there's another problem. A lot of these families, not only are they low income and they don't have internet, or they don't have devices to access the remote learning systems, but in many cases, their parents are essential workers that need to go to work. So nobody's supervising or helping these children do the work that they're supposed to do. It's a completely messed up situation. I do not know about organizations helping, but that is, you know what, a great thing to look into and get back to you. So I'm going to make a note of that. Organizations. If anybody has other questions or comments, I would love to hear them while I take down this little note. Okay, my handwriting there was pretty bad because I was doing it pretty fast, but that's okay. Thank you everybody for being here. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if this is not horrible, give me a thumbs up. Give me a little love so I don't get terrified and I attempt to do this again. The next topic that I wanted to talk about was related to something that's been going on since last weekend. Anthony Fauci, the country's topmost expert on infectious diseases, has been under attack by the White House and the Trump administration. He is the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and he has worked with a number of presidents, I believe since the Reagan administration, on all sorts of issues. Obviously Obama, Bush, and now Trump. But because of what he has said related to the coronavirus pandemic and his pushes for more masks and everything else, they are not very happy with him, because the administration obviously is not into wearing masks or mask mandates, and they keep saying that this is going to be over in 15 days. So over the weekend, somebody anonymously sent media outlets like a whole list of remarks, like opposition research on Dr. Anthony Fauci, which I think it's ironic since we have a president that has said nearly 20,000 lies since he's been in office. But he keeps pushing and making statements about the dangers of the pandemic. He, after 5 weeks of having no contact with the president, finally went back to the White House earlier this week. But later in the week, on Wednesday, the senior trade advisor, Peter Navarro, wrote an op-ed in USA Today saying that Fauci was wrong about everything related to COVID. Which is, I mean, obviously he has made some mistakes because it's a new virus and nobody is perfect. But nobody can be 100% right when you're learning as you go, right? Here's the interesting thing. Because of the op-ed that Peter Navarro wrote, the White House started distancing themselves from Navarro, even though in a normal administration, he would have been fired. But this one doesn't care so much. They just said that he didn't go through the proper clearance channels to do that. And also, USA Today, the editorial page editor said that the article did not meet the USA Today's fact-checking standards and that the attacks on Fauci were misleading or lacked context. Fauci didn't stay quiet, and he called these attacks and saying that they were bizarre and that it really just made them look bad, attacking the man that is very trusted in the country and I believe in the whole world. In the meantime, we have a president who insists that if we just do less tests, then we're just going to have fewer cases, right? Right now, this week, there was a Quinnipiac poll that was released where Trump's approval rating is at 36%. 60% of those people surveyed disapprove. That is a 6-point drop compared to last month. I forgot to mention something earlier, and I apologize for jumping back to the school discussion. I don't know how I skipped this. Maybe because I didn't highlight it in my document, and I apologize. Since we're talking about polls, other people were polled about schools reopening, and 65% of voters oppose threats coming from Trump to cut federal funding unless schools reopen. So only 22% of respondents agree that schools that don't reopen should have their funds cut off. That's where we are with schools. And we're going to move over to one of our last topics, which is the coronavirus, where we are state by state. So, on Thursday, we broke records again with 75,600 new cases. Now, I want to show you. I'm going to go back to my side screen. And we're no longer talking about reopening schools. We're talking about the status of coronavirus. I need to improve my little transitions there. I promise I'm going to be better next time. So this is where we are in the country. We have nearly 140,000 deaths of coronavirus. 3.6 million cases, actually more than that. I'm going to jump over to cases state by state so you can see the peak in certain states that I want you to pay attention to. And excuse me for scrolling. This is going to be a little bit annoying to watch, and I apologize. Here we go. And you know what? I'm going to remove myself from this. There we go. So, as you can see, Florida, the last 14 days, this is what's going on. Absolutely crazy increase in numbers. Louisiana, the same. We have Alabama, a huge increase in numbers. I believe Alabama is now one of the states that finally decided to get on board with the mask mandate. The mayor of Montgomery started this back in April, but it took a while for the governor to catch on. Georgia, where Brian Kemp is refusing to issue a mask mandate and is suing the mayor of Atlanta over this. This is the numbers. As you can see, there are a lot of states in the country where the number of cases is increasing. Now I'm going to move slowly a little bit here because I believe we do have some states where the amount of cases is staying pretty steady. And it's good to see New York and New Jersey. If you see these peaks right here, it's absolutely heartbreaking what was going on in New York and New Jersey earlier on. But look at that beautiful decline, and the amount of cases is staying about the same. And now we do have a few cases of states where the numbers are dropping. So let me show you that. We have Delaware and Maine. I haven't seen Maine a lot in the news. I have no idea what they're doing. I would love to know what's going on in Maine, because clearly they seem to have this under control. And I'm back over here. It's been 30 minutes since I started this first Tono Latino YouTube live. I was so nervous before I started this, but you guys have been very gracious. Thank you so much for the comments and the encouragement. Somebody's saying that next time we should all bring beer and wine for the next live. You know what? I think we should do it because it's going to be on Fridays. And I'm going to need to calm my nerves. I'm going to be better next time, making sure that this doesn't happen. I will do a few more tests so that we don't go with this trouble. And I'm going to have to type an email shortly to apologize to my newsletter subscribers so that if they turn on the notifications for this, I know I disappointed them, because there is no live that I pre-scheduled. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. If you want to be notified of when I'm going to do this again, the best way is to subscribe to my newsletter. Head over to my website, or I can, you know what? I think I can type the link right here. Yeah, I'm going to put it in the comments so you guys have it. And by the way, if anybody is watching this, oh shoot, it won't let me put the comments in right here, but I will put it in the description below. I will also include some links to all of these articles that I covered in case you want to check them out later. Thank you everybody for your patience. This was a test, and obviously tests can be a little clunky, but I survived. I think I'm gonna need to just like lay down on the floor and take a few deep breaths, because, you know, that was a lot. But with that, I'm gonna say ciao. Have a wonderful weekend. Please follow me on Instagram at tono.latino. I should have a little thing to show on the screen for next time. I do a news recap every Monday through Thursday at 6:30 p.m. unless I have a conflict, like what happened yesterday. And